it's Michelle, and this is vlog 5 for my vlog series for my newly published book Identity, which is available to purchase on Amazon on www.amazon.com or www.amazon.com.au, and you can purchase it as an ebook or a paperback. So today I'm going to be talking about chapter 4, which is titled Being Diagnosed, which is pretty straightforward, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of insight as usual behind the chapter. So at this time in everything that's kind of happening in my journey with bipolar disorder, I'm now actually in the psych ward, and I find myself laying on a bed in a room being questioned by a nurse who is not very friendly, and because I'm in a state of being delusional and still manic, I perceive him to be the devil. Once I am finished with him, I end up going into the lounge room outside of my room that I've been assigned, and I meet a couple of guys and I tell them about Thomas, and one of the things that I do remember in particular is one guy telling me how, Thomas deserved to be punched in the face because of what I told him of how Thomas had treated me and how upset I was by it. So it kind of felt good at that time to feel as though somebody understood and, was defending me, even though this was a complete stranger. And then I met another guy who, because of the way he looked and because I was again in a state of delusion and mania, I perceived him to be a vampire. Obviously that wasn't the case. So yeah, and then after that I'm surprised because we get called out to basically go and have a cigarette break, and I also found myself being surprised that the nurse who handed out the cigarettes and lit up our cigarettes for us ends up having a smoke with all of us, with the patients as well. So yeah, and then I end up on the phone because we're allowed to make one phone call, and I call up my mum, and I'm absolutely hysterical, just crying on the phone and asking her to come and get me, and telling her everything that had happened to me and how horrible it was, and just kind of expecting her to kind of come to my aid and rescue me from this situation that I just didn't understand and I was completely overwhelmed by. And she pointed out that she was over 2,000 kilometers away, so there was nothing that she could really do at that stage, and I just felt like I was screwed, and that I would just kind of have to take matters into my own hands. So I remember once I got off the phone with her, I was like, there's no point kind of leaning on my mum, because she's right, there's nothing that she can do. And so I remember just in that moment feeling like, okay, I'm gonna sort this out for myself. I don't have Thomas anymore, he's out of the picture. I don't know what's happening with us. I don't have my family, and I really am alone, and I'm in hospital, but I'm just gonna go with whatever's happening. And I guess I kind of, because I saw Salt, the movie, a couple of days beforehand, I kind of took on her characteristics or traits when it came to strength, to just kind of be, independent and feeling as though the whole world was against me, but I felt as though I had the strength within me to get through whatever I was going to go through. So once I woke up in the morning, I still didn't understand or comprehend where I was or what was going on, but I just kind of went with it, and everybody else, as in all the other patients with the nurses, were all having breakfast, and I wasn't allowed to have breakfast because I had to go through a whole series of tests which I remember kind of went for a long time because I had to have, I think, an MRI scan, and I had to have another test where they glued all these things onto my head. And so anyway, after that I ended up back in the lounge room, and I remember listening to my iPod and then seeing this girl who looked quite young, but in her teenage years or late teenage years, maybe 19 or something, or even possibly younger. And I remember just seeing her arms and her legs, which were visible, and just seeing all these cuts all over her legs and arms. And we started talking, and we started bonding over music that we both liked. And I thought to myself, I'm going to give her my iPod because I feel like music obviously makes her really happy, and if this can make her happy, then I would be glad to help her. And I'm already at that point, I'm in, a state of mania, so I'm as happy as can be. So I give her my iPod, but then I get called into a room with a doctor at the back of the room, and like all these people, and sitting like in a semicircle, sitting in a semicircle, and I get seated on the opposite end of the room facing the doctor. He explains that he's the doctor and he's dressed in a suit and tie, and that all the other people in the room are students, and they've all got notepads and they're taking notes. And I remember kind of like being in my pajamas and not being able to lift my eyes from looking at the floor. I just had no control over that part of my body. I literally couldn't lift up my eyes, and I was trying so hard, and maybe at one point I was able to look at him, but I kept having my eyes pulled towards the ground and I couldn't look up. And he explained to me that due to my behaviour and what Thomas had told him, that he believed that he diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. And he also said to me that I had to give back that the girl who I'd given my iPod to had to give it back to me, because I'd only done that because I was manic. So when I came out of there, I spoke to Thomas. Thomas came in, and I watched some silly video with him on his phone and laughed at it. I don't know, it was a little bit, I was a little bit high, so I didn't really understand what was going between Thomas and I don't think I really was in the headspace to even think about what was happening between the both of us with our relationship. But I just remember coming out and having to ask for my iPod back from the girl I had given it to. And when I did, she was just, the look on her face, she was just completely devastated, and I felt so bad for her, and I didn't understand why I had to take it back, because I had happily given it to her. And so that concludes the end of chapter 4, where I was diagnosed. So hope you enjoy reading the chapter, and I will see you in the next video for vlog 6. God bless.